London streets had a way of keeping their secrets. On a chilly evening, Jason Statham walked alone, his hands tucked into the pockets of his leather jacket. The soft hum of the city surrounded him, distant car horns, the chatter of late-night pedestrians, and the occasional siren wailing in the background. It was supposed to be just another night. Then he heard it. A muffled thud, followed by a sharp cry of pain. Jason's head snapped toward a narrow alleyway just beyond a row of parked cars. In the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, he saw the scene unfold, two figures locked in a brutal struggle. A teenager, barely old enough to drive, was on the ground, clutching his stomach in agony. Towering over him was a man dressed in a black hoodie and combat boots, his stance radiating aggression. Jason didn't need to guess what was happening. He had seen it too many times before, bullies preying on the weak, confident that no one would step in. This time they were dead wrong. Backhand index pointing right asterisk. What would you do if you saw someone getting attacked? Would you step in like Jason, or call for help? Drop your thoughts in the comments, asterisk. Jason exhaled slowly, rolling his shoulders. He had no interest in picking fights, but he wasn't about to stand by while some thug used a kid for target practice. "Oi," he called out, his voice carrying a quiet authority. "That your idea of fun, mate?" The attacker barely glanced over his shoulder. "Piss off, old man. Ain't your problem." Jason smirked. Asterisk old man? That's a first, asterisk. But he wasn't laughing. He stepped forward, his movements controlled, calculated. "See, I've got a problem with people like you," he said, tilting his head slightly. "Beating up kids? That's not fighting, that's just cowardice." The thug turned fully now, his dark eyes narrowing. "You don't know who you're talking to." Jason raised an eyebrow. "And you don't know who you're messing with." The tension thickened. The teenager groaned on the ground, trying to crawl away, but the thug took a threatening step toward him. Jason moved faster. In a blink, he was between them, his stance firm, his gaze locked onto the attacker like a predator sizing up its prey. "Back off," Jason warned. The thug chuckled, a low, menacing sound. "You think you're some kind of hero?" He cracked his knuckles and took a fighter stance. "You don't look so tough." Jason's eyes flicked to the thug's posture. Solid stance. Balanced weight. No wasted movement. This guy wasn't just a street brawler, he had formal training. "Interesting. You've got skill," Jason admitted. "Shame you're wasting it." The thug sneered. "Big words. Let's see if you can back them up." With that he lunged. Jason sidestepped effortlessly, watching as the thug's fist sliced through empty air. Before the attacker could recover, Jason delivered a lightning-fast counter, a short, powerful strike to the ribs. The thug grunted but barely flinched. That confirmed it. This wasn't some random mugger. He had discipline, endurance. Jason had just stepped into something more than a street fight. The thug smirked. "Not bad," he said, straightening. "I was hoping for a warm-up." Jason rolled his neck, a small grin playing on his lips. He had seen plenty of arrogant fighters before, but something about this guy felt different. He wasn't just cocky, he was confident, and that meant one thing. He had reason to be. As Jason clenched his fists, preparing for round two, the thug's grin widened. "You really don't know who I am, do you?" Jason shrugged. "Should I?" The thug's expression darkened. "I'm a black belt in Shotokan karate. I've broken bones in the ring and on the streets. And you? You're just some washed-up action star." Jason chuckled, shaking his head. "Mate, I'm not an actor right now. I'm your worst nightmare." The fight was just getting started. Jason Statham stood his ground, eyes locked on the thug before him. The man's arrogance radiated off him like heat, his smirk confident, his stance practiced. "A black belt in Shotokan karate?" Jason repeated, cracking his knuckles. "And that's supposed to impress me?" The thug's grin widened. "I've put people down in one strike. You're just a movie guy." Jason tilted his head slightly. "Is that right?" The crowd that had started to form along the edges of the alley murmured, sensing the tension in the air. Someone had pulled out a phone, already recording. The fight hadn't even started, and it was already turning into a spectacle. Jason had been in plenty of real fights. No stunt coordinators, no second takes, just raw instinct and skill. And right now, he could see that this guy wasn't bluffing. He had the stance of a trained fighter. But he also had a fatal flaw, asterisk his ego, asterisk. Backhand index pointing right asterisk. Do you think formal martial arts training beats real-world experience? Comment below, asterisk. The thug lunged first, launching a powerful front kick aimed at Jason's ribs. It was fast, controlled, but predictable. Jason sidestepped smoothly, letting the kick slice through empty space before countering with a sharp hook to the body. The thug barely flinched. Jason felt the resistance, solid core, well-conditioned. This guy could take a hit. But could he take many? Not bad, the thug admitted, rolling his shoulders. Guess you're not completely useless. Jason smirked. And you're not completely hopeless. The thug's grin faltered. You'll regret that. With no further warning, he exploded forward, fists flying. Jason parried effortlessly, deflecting each blow with precise movements. The guy was strong. Each strike packed power, but Jason had fought tougher. A quick feint. A sudden low kick. The thug tried to trip him up, but Jason adjusted in a split second, twisting out of reach. The crowd gasped at the display of skill. Jason stayed relaxed, studying his opponent. Asterisk too aggressive. Too eager to prove himself. Asterisk that made him dangerous, but also reckless. Losing your edge? Jason taunted, raising an eyebrow. The thug snarled. You think this is a joke? Jason exhaled slowly. No, mate. But I think you're making one out of yourself. The thug's face darkened. Without a word, he took a deep breath, shifting his weight. His stance changed, lower, more controlled. Jason recognized it instantly. Now he's getting serious. The real fight was about to begin. The energy in the alley shifted. The thug was done playing. His stance was lower now, his movements more measured. Jason Statham knew that look, the moment when a real fighter stopped underestimating his opponent. The gathered crowd sensed it too. Phones were up, cameras rolling. This wasn't just some street fight anymore. It was a showdown. The black belt thug's eyes narrowed. You're fast, I'll give you that, he admitted. But skill beats speed. And I've got both. Jason cracked his neck. Let's test that theory. The thug struck first, moving with trained precision. A powerful roundhouse kick whistled toward Jason's ribs. It was a textbook move, efficient, deadly. Jason reacted instantly. Instead of blocking, he stepped inside the arc of the kick, disrupting its momentum. In the same breath, he slammed his elbow into the thug's exposed midsection. The thug staggered, eyes flashing with surprise. Jason didn't let up. A quick jab to the jaw. A knee strike aimed at the ribs. Each hit calculated, efficient. The crowd gasped as the thug stumbled back. But he wasn't done. Snarling, he regained his balance and countered. A blur of fists and kicks came at Jason. Faster, sharper this time. The black belt's technique was undeniable. Every strike was controlled, every move fluid. Jason absorbed a glancing blow to the shoulder, rolling with the impact. Pain flared, but he'd had worse. The thug smirked. What's wrong, movie star? Not so quick now. Jason grinned, wiping his mouth. That all you've got? The thug's expression darkened. He adjusted his footing and shifted into a deeper stance, one Jason instantly recognized. Kata-based striking, the kind designed to end fights in a single move. Jason braced himself. Backhand index pointing right asterisk. Who do you think will land the next devastating blow? Jason or the black belt thug? Comment below, asterisk. The thug lunged forward, his fist aimed straight for Jason's throat. It was a lethal strike, one meant to incapacitate. But Jason was ready. At the last second, he pivoted, avoiding the attack by mere inches. Using the thug's own momentum, he trapped his arm and twisted, hard. The thug's body spun, and before he could react, Jason swept his legs out from under him. Boom! The black belt hit the ground hard. The crowd erupted. Jason stood over him, calm, controlled. Told you, ego makes you sloppy. The thug groaned, gripping his ribs, But Jason could already see it in his eyes, the realization that he'd underestimated the wrong man. This fight wasn't over. But the tables had turned. The thug lay on the cold pavement, his breathing heavy, his face twisted with frustration. He had walked into this fight thinking it would be easy, thinking Jason Statham was just an actor, a Hollywood tough guy who only knew choreographed moves. Now, he was questioning everything. Jason stood over him, relaxed but alert. He'd been in enough fights to know this wasn't over. The crowd murmured, cameras still rolling. They had just witnessed something unexpected. A trained black belt, a so-called street warrior, had been outmaneuvered by a man who was supposed to be pretending to fight for a living. The thug pushed himself up, shaking off the pain. His pride wouldn't let him stay down. "Lucky shot," he muttered, wiping his mouth. Jason smirked. "You keep telling yourself that." The thug's eyes burned with renewed anger. He shifted his stance again, but this time, Jason saw the change. The reckless bravado was gone. Now, he was calculating. This was where things got dangerous. Backhand index pointing right asterisk. Have you ever underestimated someone in a fight? Or been underestimated yourself? Share your experience in the comments, asterisk. The thug moved in fast, closing the gap between them. He faked a punch high, forcing Jason to react, then dropped low for a powerful sweep kick. Jason leaped back, avoiding the strike by inches. He's learning. But so was Jason. As the thug pushed forward with a follow-up strike, a lightning-fast back fist aimed at his jaw, Jason trapped his arm mid-motion. In a blink, he twisted the thug's wrist, redirecting his momentum and forcing him off balance. The thug grunted in pain, trying to pull free. Jason didn't let him. "You've got skill," Jason said calmly, tightening his grip. "But skill alone won't save you when you don't know how to adapt." The thug's muscles tensed, his breath ragged. "Let go." Jason did. But not before sending a precise, controlled strike to the thug's chest, knocking him back a few steps. Not hard enough to break anything, just enough to make a point. The thug stumbled but didn't fall. He clutched his ribs, glaring. "You talk like you're some master fighter," he spat. "But I've been training for years." Jason exhaled, shaking his head. "Training isn't the same as surviving." He took a step forward. "You've spent your life memorizing techniques, following rules. But out here..." He gestured to the streets around them. "No refs. No second chances. Real fights don't come with a rulebook." The thug's fists clenched, but his confidence had cracked. Jason lowered his hands, no longer in a fighting stance. "You want to keep going?" he asked. "Or do you want to walk away with your ribs still intact?" The air between them was thick with tension. The crowd waited, breathless. For the first time since the fight began, the thug hesitated. The alley fell silent. The thug stood hunched over, breathing heavily, his fists still clenched. But Jason could see it in his eyes, the hesitation, the doubt creeping in. The fight had already been decided. He just didn't want to admit it. The crowd sensed it too. The excited murmurs had turned into hushed anticipation. Phones were still recording, waiting for either a final blow or a surrender. Jason remained still, his hands relaxed at his sides. "What's it gonna be?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. The thug exhaled sharply. His pride was a heavy weight on his shoulders, but the pain in his ribs was heavier. And then, he made his choice. Backhand index pointing right asterisk. "What do you think? Should the thug accept defeat or go for one last attack? Drop your thoughts below, asterisk." With a sudden roar, he lunged forward. Jason expected it. The thug's fist cut through the air, aimed directly at Jason's jaw. But Jason didn't move backward. Instead, he stepped in, closing the distance in a fraction of a second. Before the thug could register what had happened, Jason's palm shot forward. Asterisk bam, asterisk, a precise strike straight to his sternum. The impact was brutal but controlled. Enough to shut the fight down without doing permanent damage. The thug gasped as the wind was knocked from his lungs. His knees buckled. He staggered back, his legs giving out as he dropped to the pavement. This time he stayed down. The crowd exploded. Cheers, whistles, and gasps filled the alleyway. Some people clapped. Others simply stared, stunned at what they had just witnessed. Jason exhaled, rolling his shoulders. The fight was over. The thug coughed, holding his chest. His breaths were ragged, his pride shattered. Jason crouched down, looking him in the eye. "You've got skill," he said evenly. "But you fight for the wrong reasons." The thug didn't respond. He just sat there, staring at the ground. Jason stood up. "Next time," he said, turning to walk away, "pick on someone your own size." The crowd parted as he stepped through, leaving the scene behind. The phones kept recording, the internet already buzzing with what would soon become another viral Jason Statham moment. But to him, it was just another night in London. The alley was still buzzing with excitement as Jason Statham walked away, his hands tucked into his jacket pockets. The fight was over, and he had nothing left to prove. But as he turned the corner, something made him pause. A low groan. The black belt thug was still on the ground, clutching his ribs. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind nothing but pain and humiliation. The crowd around him had started to thin, some laughing, others shaking their heads as they walked off. It wasn't the physical defeat that hurt the most. It was the shame. Jason sighed. He could leave it at that, let the guy sit in his own regret. But something told him this fight wasn't really about power, it was about something deeper. Turning back, he walked up to the fallen fighter. The thug flinched, expecting another strike. Instead, Jason extended a hand. The thug looked up, eyes filled with confusion. "What?" Jason didn't say a word, just held out his hand, waiting. For a long moment, the thug hesitated. His pride told him to refuse. But deep down, he knew the truth. Jason had beaten him, not just physically, but mentally. Swallowing hard, he reached up and took Jason's hand. Jason pulled him to his feet effortlessly. The thug winced, still holding his ribs. "Didn't think you'd help me up." Jason smirked. "Didn't think you'd take the hand." The thug let out a dry chuckle, shaking his head. "Guess we both learned something." Jason studied him for a moment. "You've got talent. But you're wasting it." The thug scoffed. "Spare me the lecture." Jason shrugged. "Just saying, there's a difference between fighting to prove something and fighting for a purpose." He nodded toward the alley. "You've been doing the first. Maybe it's time to try the second." The thug's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue. But deep down, he knew Jason was right. He watched as Jason turned to leave once more, his calm, confident stride unwavering. And for the first time in a long time, the thug felt something unexpected. Respect.